how do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to talk about you after you've passed on? You know, what's going to be, your defining moments in life? Like all that stuff that we quite often don't think about because the answer is a bit hard to find. But if you keep asking why, and really explore that and have fun with that, then you'll tap into something really deep and really personal that's in your core. And that's your true being. That's your purpose. That's your potential. Once you operate from that space, like why you do the things you do, you don't even question it, then nothing can stop you.
Today's masterclass is on setting goals using the smartest method. Our guest is Brian McAleer, a life and career coach, trainer and writer. 20 years ago, when he was only 19, he picked up a book called Unlimited Power by Anthony Robbins. He began reading, developed a taste for personal development, and has been working on himself ever since. This led Brian to become a client of life coaching in his early 20s, finding his courage and purpose to push himself and try to achieve all his goals. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Anita. Thank you for having me on your program.
What took you on your journey of life coaching? Is this something you needed for yourself, or could you see there was a need for it?
Yeah, I think it came across my life at a point where I was a bit frustrated, a bit unsure of what direction to head in. So life after high school for me in those first few years was a bit uncertain. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of jumping into other things that people would suggest, not really thinking, well, what do I want to do for myself? So I started just being a bit more proactive and asking myself some questions like, what do I want to do? What's important to me? Where do I want to go? What's my ideal career? So I just started asking myself all these questions, and I was working at a bar at the time when I was 19 or 20. And it was a quiet bar. We didn't get a lot of people in. And there was a TV up in the corner with a late night infomercial for Tony Robbins talking about, gaining the edge and improving your life. And I started watching that. I'm like, okay, this guy seems pretty enthusiastic. So I wandered into the bookshop, saw his bookshop, read that book, as you mentioned. And then I just became familiar with the concept of life coaching and did a bit of an internet search and found that there was a few life coaches in Melbourne, not as many as there are today. This was back in 2006. It was still an emerging industry. But I contacted a life coach and I went along there and had a complimentary session, and she helped me look at my life and where I wasn't satisfied. And then I walked away and I didn't do anything for a year because I was actually a bit scared of change and scared of the potential. But then after a year, I found my situation hadn't improved and I was still quite, frustrated, not sure what to do. So I went back and saw her again and I said, I'm ready. I'm ready to just make some changes. And then I went through her program and it was life-changing. And it was all about me just trying to figure out how I could apply myself. I had goals and I had ideas, and she just helped me open up that part of my mind and put myself out there, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's brilliant. You went back, you realised you weren't ready first time around, and I think a lot of people do struggle with that. And you have to be ready, most certainly. And when you are, you want more in life. Right. How would you describe life coaching to someone new to it?
Life coaching is around getting support and accountability to set goals and work on them progressively over a period of time. And there's lots of different coaching approaches and lots of different styles of coaches. So you can find a business coach, a financial coach, a relationship coach, a small business coach. There's coaches for productivity, coaches for fitness. So any niche you can think of. So it's really just about picking an area where you feel you've got some ideas and you want to create change, but you're just not sure how to go about it. It's really helpful for someone who doesn't like sitting in a class or doesn't have the motivation to read a book and apply all of that themselves. with a coach, you've got someone there who knows you, who knows what you want to do, and they're there to give you that push and that kick in the butt when you need it, just to keep you focused and keep you going. And I suppose it's important to mention that coaching is not therapy. It's not a replacement for counseling or psychology or psychiatry. They're for dealing with other mental health issues. Certainly with coaching, it can help boost your mental well-being, but it's not about dealing with those more deep-seated issues like grief or trauma. Coaching is really about motivation, productivity, and accountability. So that's why people take a coach on board, someone who's just there to give them a push and give them some guidance.
Fantastic. So your method is setting goals using the smartest method. Tell me more about that, please.
Yeah, sure. So it was an idea that just sort of popped into my head one day many, many years ago. I was just starting my business. I didn't know what my business was going to be yet, but I knew I wanted to be a coach. So I was quite young. I just started studying coaching, so 26, 27. And a coach who was sort of giving me advice said, create a product or create something you can offer your clients. And she said to me, what do you like to do? And I'm like, I like to write. I'd written some stories in high school, and I'd written a few things here and there in my 20s, but hadn't really taken the writing very seriously yet. So I thought, well, I wouldn't mind writing a book. And she's like, great, well, pick a topic and write a book. It sounded really simple. It wasn't easy, but it was as simple as that. And I started looking at the books I liked and for some inspiration and different methods that had helped me. And being a real goal-orientated person, I looked at all the goal methods that were out there. And one of the most common ones is the SMART way of setting goals, which most of your listeners are probably familiar with. We learn about it in high school. It's still used in the business world today. And I was looking at that and sort of unpacking it and dissecting it a little bit. And I decided, well, SMART it's not quite smart enough. There's something missing from this goal planning method. What I realized was missing was it would help you plan a goal. It wouldn't really help you take action and stick to the goal over the long term. It didn't have any advice or tips on that. And I thought, well, that's what's been my problem with setting goals before. Is I was great at making plans, like writing a beautiful goal plan where it would just sit on my desk for the weekend, and I'd be like, yep, I'll get started on Monday when my inspiration's ready, and then nothing would happen. And then I was wondering why I was starting over and over and over again, because I was stuck in the planning stage. So I thought, I need something here to give me that boost. My coach is not going to be there for me 24/7. I've got to be able to do this myself. So I thought, well, what makes a goal get moving? And I thought, well, you need to have energy and enthusiasm about it. You need to share it with someone so you're more accountable. And then after any plan, you want to implement the first step, right? And that's where the EST came along, the energize, shared, and take the first step. So it went from SMART to smartest. And that's how it evolved. It just seemed to take shape. And then I started writing it as a blog. So each week I would post a one-page description of each letter of the method. And then by the end of that, I realized I might have something here. And so I purchased a self-publishing book package for myself. And I'd done that years before and done nothing with it because I was stuck in my planning stage. And then they contacted me and said, you've still got this book package. Do you want to use it? It never expires. And I'm like, well, actually, yeah, I've got something here that might be the start of a book. So then I developed it, and then it became a book. So that was about a year after I started the blog. I'd written the book, and that was back in 2014. And that's how the smartest method started.
Why do so many people's New Year's resolutions fail? New Year not long ago, everyone's all excited, everyone jots what they're going to achieve, and they never do, or most people don't.
Seems to be a common sort of conundrum. We have all this inspiration and motivation at the start of a new year to radically change our lives and put the past behind us. And then a few weeks into January, it all seems to just stall and stop. So you'll see a lot of people sign up for gyms at the beginning of the year, and 3 or 4 weeks into the year, 60% of those new gym memberships people just aren't showing up, right? So I think, I guess for starters, people like to set New Year's resolutions because a new year is like a chance for a fresh start. And we've come out of Christmas and New Year's and the holiday period, so we've had some time to relax, hopefully, and have a bit of a think about the year that's just gone, and we tend to look back on that year in highlights. You know, what went well, what didn't go so good, what was the most memorable parts of the year, what did I accomplish? You know, and we've all got something inside us we want to accomplish in our life. You know, I like to say to my clients, we all have a masterpiece inside of us, whether that's a book or a business or a company. We all have something we want to create and leave behind. You know, and some of us really struggle to know what that is and get that going. So New Year's resolutions is a chance to, I guess, start exploring those parts of ourselves. You know, and for most people, it's about, you know, getting fit, quit smoking, save more money, go on a holiday, start a new job, go back to study, renovate my house, right? So all these big changes that we hope will, you know, improve the quality of our life. Now, the reason they don't work out is because, for starters, most New Year's resolutions are just preferences. They're more like a wish list. And that's a good place to start, but that's really vague. You know, so to get fit is quite vague. That's not very specific. And I'll give an example of that when I talk about the method, how you can take that vague preference and actually turn it into a specific goal. The other problem is relying only on motivation. Now, motivation is great, but motivation is just a short burst of energy that gets you up and gets you moving. But in reality, it doesn't sustain you over the long term, because resolutions don't all happen in the month of January. You don't create all this change in 1 month. You know, you can decide what your resolution is and get really clear on it, but you could be working on this for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or even a year. You know, I've got some goals I've been working on for 4 or 5 years, like books and businesses and stuff. So if I just stopped at the end of the year because I didn't achieve it and start over again, you know, I wouldn't get anywhere. So I think that's the thing with resolutions, is that they're not specific enough, and they rely on that motivation of, hey, it's a new year, great. There's all this buzz in the air, it's a new year. But then, you know, 3rd or 4th week into January, 1st week of February, life just goes back to normal. We're back at work, we're back to the grind, and that gets in the way, and that's what stalls a lot of resolutions.
Yeah, that's interesting, and absolutely, yeah, long-term goals, then you're not going to achieve them in 1 year, and yeah, it's pointless starting again. Absolutely,
Definitely.
can understand
it's a bit
that.
of a cycle, yeah.
Yeah. Why is achieving goals so hard for some people?
Because not knowing that just planning a goal is enough, that you've actually got to keep taking action over and over again. It's hard because goals require work, you know, and there's a lot of pain and a lot of hard work and effort required into working on a goal. Once you achieve it and you get the outcome, that's the easy part. You know, if you've done the hard work, the outcome should just come to you naturally. The real challenge, but also at the same time, the real reward is in the process of working on the goal. A lot of people want goals to just happen. Like they may think, well, if I've planned a goal now and I've put it out there to the universe, it should just happen to me. That's only half of it. You know, like The Secret suggests, you attract what you think about, and that certainly helps, but you've also got to take action. You know, so the action part is the hard part, and it's not fun. It's not always fun. You know, it's a lot of working on your own. You know, a lot of goals, you have to do it on your own. You've got to challenge yourself. You've got to step outside your comfort zone. There's lots of failures and rejections along the way. Business ideas I've had that have stalled because I just didn't have the crucial elements in it. I can tell you there's been plenty of ideas, plenty of books I've started that haven't gotten anywhere because I was turned off by the fact that I actually had to put in some real hard work. So once you shift away from the outcome and just focus on the process of, you know, the reward of working on the goal and everything that comes from that, then goal setting and goal achieving tends to come a bit more naturally then, because you're changing your habits and you're changing your behaviors, and that's what helps make goals happen. So if you think it's just that initial whim of motivation and a nice plan is what's going to make a goal work, it won't. That's just the start of it. So that's probably why a lot of people struggle with goals. And I know for myself, that's why I struggled with goal setting, because I wasn't expecting to have to work so hard.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it sounds quite good, but yeah, we actually have to do the work as well. How can someone then keep their motivation going to stick to the goal and achieve it?
As I was saying before, motivation is great, but it's only temporary. And motivation is usually what we do to move away from something that we don't want. So the pain versus pleasure principle. We tend to do more to avoid pain in life than we do to gain pleasure. A classic example of this is when I meet a new client for coaching and I'm like, tell me, what would you like to get out of the coaching, or what would be a great outcome for you? They spend the first 10 minutes telling me about all the things that they don't want to happen, or that
absolutely.
they're not happy with, or that they don't like. So most of the time we're focused on our problems and our pain. I don't like my job. I don't like my boss. I don't like my house. I don't like my body. I don't like that I'm not fit enough, or this, or smart enough, or rich enough, right? And then the more we focus on those problems, we sort of get overwhelmed and like, oh God, it's going to be so hard to change, because all I'm seeing here is what's wrong and what's missing. So that's useful at the start. Like, I'll always say to a person, great, you know what you don't want, so what do you want? How can we maybe flip that on its head and say, what's the opposite of that, or what's the positive alternative of that? Because we'll do enough to avoid pain. Like, if we're really unhappy with our job, we might work up enough motivation to go online and start searching for a job. But then we get overwhelmed because, there's not enough jobs out there, or there's too many jobs out there. I'm going to have to start over. I'm going to have to meet new people. I'm going to need a new boss. I'm going to possibly go down in pay. Why bother? I'll just stick with my job, right? So we kind of deflate ourselves because we see focusing on all the problems. So that motivation will get us saying, well, yeah, I want to create change, but then it's not enough, really. I think the next step beyond motivation is we need to be inspired. We need to have inspiration. Because when you're inspired by what you're doing, you don't need motivation. You just do it. You do it intrinsically, and you do it because it's what you love and it's what you're drawn to. And that's something that I talk about in my method, is about setting a goal that is relatable. And anything that's relatable to you comes from your values and what's most important to you and your priorities. And that's the source of inspiration. Although inspiration sometimes can take a bit of a hit, when we have a change in circumstances or a change in values. So then you can go back to motivation and say, well, hang on, I've come this far. If I don't keep going, I'm going to be back to square one. So that's where the motivation comes in, to just get us up off the couch and get us moving again until we find that inspiration. So the motivation is like turning on the key in your car. It gets the engine going. It's the spark. But the inspiration is like the fuel that keeps the car going.
Lovely. Love it. Great analogy. Yeah. So how can someone tackle the difficulty of making decisions, i.e., when somebody's got several goals, they don't know which one to work on? Is there a system, or is there something they should tackle first, the easiest goal, the hardest? How does one choose one?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and something I struggled with as well. Certainly when I was trying to write my first book, and I had a few different ideas, and I was working on 2 or 3 of them at a time and got nowhere. And then once I just decided to pick one and follow it through with it until it was done, that was the game changer, really. So the secret behind making decisions is that a decision isn't really real until you take action on it. We can make a decision in our mind that we can think about for weeks, months, or even years and build up all these reasons why I want to do that. But then we can all relate to having even more quickly changing that decision at the last minute, right? Because of an influence, or someone says something, or something happens. And I used to do this all the time. I was the king of indecision, I used to call myself, where I would weigh up all the pros and cons and overthink it and rationalize it. And then eventually be like, yeah, I think I'll go with this. And then someone would come along and be like, well, actually, here's what I did. And then just like that, I changed my mind. So a decision isn't really real until you've taken some kind of action on it. There's a bit of a method with making decisions as well. Quite often the things we like to make decisions on are due to like a goal that we're trying to achieve or a problem that we're trying to solve. So rather than going straight from the problem to the decision, there's a few steps that need to happen in between, so it's about looking at, well, what's going to be probably the best solution for this problem? There might be multiple solutions, but what's the solution I think is going to be most effective? And then you start to ask some questions of that solution. So like, say the problem is, I need to change my career. I'm not happy. So the solution is find a new career, find a new job. Then you start to ask questions. It's like, well, where do I want to work? What kind of job do I want to have? And then you go through all those answers. As you get those answers, you're actually identifying what your options are. and you look at your options, and then you narrow them down to, well, what would be maybe the two choices I'm going to consider the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a matter of picking one. You might be great at two different jobs or two different industries. It doesn't mean you have to do both of them. You can just say, well, I'll choose this one because this is what feels right for me at this point in my life. So those become your two choices. And then decision making really has to be just quite brutal. You just got to be like, this is what I'm going to do. Even if it doesn't work out, or if I don't fully understand it yet, I'm deciding by picking this and I'm going to take action on it. And decision making gets easier the more you just make those decisions. So once you've narrowed down your choices, you decide, and then you act on that decision. You take some kind of action, whether it's telling someone or quitting that job. Once you've done that, there's no going back, right? So you've got to kind of burn those bridges and say, this is my decision and I'm going to act on it no matter what. Then it'll go one of two ways. It'll either work out for you or it won't work out for you. If that decision doesn't work, you go back to your options and your choices and you try something else. If it does work for you, great. Then you've made a real decision, you've acted, you've created change. So rather than rush through decision making or, let other people do it for you or wait for the perfect try, avoiding all of that stuff, it's just decide and just take action and see what happens. And the more you do that, the better you get at it, and you'll be more confident in making decisions instead of being stuck in that decision-making limbo where nothing happens.
That's brilliant. Brilliant way to unpack it. Thank you. As we mentioned earlier, you've got a book titled Setting Goals Using the Smartest Method. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. So as I was mentioning before, it started off as a blog and then it became a book. And, it's gone on to be one of the main methods I use to coach my clients. And, every client who works with me gets a copy of the book and they learn how to use the method. So what it's about is it's about planning that goal, which is crucial. But, the thing that life shows us is that even the best made plans can be thrown out the window at the last minute because either things change or we find a different plan. So learning how to plan is great, but learning how to implement that plan and change it is just as important. And that's what the smartest method is teaching people with goals. Have a plan, but, the missing ingredients that I found from most other goal setting methods was that it wasn't talking about the energy and excitement that you need to get started and spark the motivation and eventually, that inspiration. It's not shared with anyone, so the accountability is missing and you're not really taking the first step. But that's how the smartest method solves those problems, is that by the end of using the method, you've already taken the first step of the goal. And this may happen within an hour or within a day or two, depending how in depth you go with your goal. But you can start with just an idea, and then by the end of the day or a few days later, you've actually taken some action on that goal. And then once you do that and you get an outcome, you're like, wow, this is actually working, and it gets the ball rolling. And then it's just taking one step after another. So really that's where the power of the smartest method lies. So the smartest method, as I was saying before, is an expansion on SMART goals. So the SMART way of setting goals, the acronym usually breaks down to specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time framed. So some of those words are in my method, but I also challenge some of those words as well, and I've added a few more. So in the smartest method, each letter in the smartest method stands for two words, except for the last one. So it's a bit more in depth. So the first S is small and specific. So I always say to clients, have a big vision for your life, have a really big goal, but the smartest method is not about achieving these gigantic goals. It's about breaking them down into smaller goals. The more goals you work on and achieve, the better you get at it. And then naturally you progress to larger goals over time. So it starts with a big goal that's broken down into a small goal, something that's you can make a start on today that's not going to disrupt your life too much. And then specific is about getting a really clear vision of what that goal is using your senses. So what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And if it's applicable, what does it smell and taste like? Maybe your goal is to, create a recipe. Maybe you're a chef. So you could say, yeah, I know what it's going to smell and taste like. Maybe that's not applicable to your goal, but it's about using those senses and that creative visualization to get a really clear picture of what that goal looks like once you've achieved it. And that's what's missing from a lot of the New Year's resolution processes, is that specificity is not there. And then the M is measurable and manageable. So measurable being what are all the steps you need to achieve your goal. If you're not sure what step 1, 2, and 3 is, start at the end and work backwards. That's called reverse engineering, where it's like, this is where I'm going to end up. So if this was my outcome, what would have been the last step I would have taken to achieve that goal? And then the step before that, and the step before that. That's one way to do it, to reverse engineer it, or find someone who's achieved a same or similar goal and ask them, what were the steps that you took to get there? What were those milestones? It's like walking across a river, stepping on one stone to the next until you get to the other side. That's a bit like what goals are. And the manageable part of that is, again, like that goes hand in hand with setting a goal that's small. You want to start with a goal that you feel is manageable, something that's not going to be too difficult for you early on. You want it to stretch you a little bit, but you don't want it to completely upend your life and flip your world upside down. And it shouldn't be anything too drastic that could potentially, put you at risk. So it's not about, walking away from a well-paying job before you found a new one. That could cause some really major disruptions to your life. So making sure that it's manageable and that you feel comfortable to make a start. That's really important. A lot of people set really big goals that just overwhelm them and they never get started. So that's the important part, is it should be manageable to begin with. Then we have the A of smartest. So that's achievable and attainable. So achievable is about determining what we feel we can achieve with this goal or at this stage in our life. The psychology behind achievement is that we achieve what we believe we can achieve.
Yes.
If we've got limiting beliefs, if someone said to me, I don't think I could ever play sports professionally, because I'm not good enough. Now, if they're still young and if they're of the right age, they've got a shot at that. They just have to change their beliefs. It may not apply to someone who's, in their 40s or 50s wanting to start professional sports. That's not realistic. But if it's something that's still within your reach, it's achievable, then you may just still need to change your beliefs around that goal. So when we believe we can do it, we're more likely to take action. So that's what achievable is. Attainable is different from achievable, and it's also different from manageable. Attainable is knowing, once I've got this goal, what's something physical? What's going to be the evidence that I've actually achieved this goal? Is it a physical, concrete goal? Is it something I'm going to hold in my hand? Like, is it going to be a brand new house or a new car? Is it going to be the shop for my new business? Or is it going to be, metaphysical? Is it going to be something invisible, like a feeling or a state of being or a state of mind? Whatever the goal is fine. It's just determining, what's the evidence that I've attained that goal? Will I have something to show? Will there be a noticeable difference about me? So obviously, if your goal is to lose so many kilos and get really fit, and attainable evidence of that is that you've lost weight, you're more toned, you look fit, and people are coming up to you saying, hey, you look different, you look fit, you look really good. So that's an example of an attainable goal. And that's also something that's really desirable when someone notices a difference about us and says, hey, you look great, or you look healthy, or, there's something different about you, what's going on with you? And that's a nice thing to hear. It's evidence that you've achieved your goal. So that's what I mean by attainable. Then we have the R of the smartest method, which is realistic and relatable. Now, I like to challenge the word realistic because I found when I was younger, I had all these big goals, and a lot of adults who I was looking to for guidance were saying to me, try to be a bit more realistic, Brian. That's not very realistic, Brian. And it would crush my dreams and be like, oh, great. Okay. So that's not going to happen, is it? What I mean by realistic is not limiting yourself to what your goal could be. And what's realistic for one person may not be realistic for another person. And obviously there's legitimate that affect our reality, like someone who may have a physical or intellectual disability or may have a health reason that's preventing them from doing certain things. It doesn't stop them from having goals or wanting to achieve things, but there are certain realities there. Or someone who lives in a certain part of the world has recently been affected by, like, say, a flood or a natural disaster and has lost their house. Those will impact on their reality, right? But if you're physically and intellectually fit and well, and you're in a position to create change in your life, your reality is really just, well, what is your current situation in life? That's your reality, because there's the reality of life, the reality of the world. We're born, we live, we die. There's this thing called gravity. If you jump off a building, you're not going to fly, you're going to head to the ground, right? That's reality as we know it, okay? But then there's the reality of our life, which is, what is our current situation? What's going on in our world, in our own personal world? And what about that is supporting us to grow, and what could potentially be holding us back from growing? And a lot of that is about our perceptions. We tend to believe we have a lot of obstacles in our life, but the truth is most obstacles are just perceived. They're perceived versions of reality. It's what we think is going to happen. If I go and apply for a new job, I'm not going to get that job because I haven't had an interview in 10 years. I'm really great at a job, but I haven't interviewed in 10 years. Or if you're hitting the dating scene again, I haven't been on a date in 10 years. I'm going to stuff up, right? Because that's what your current reality is telling you. But if you look at your situation and say, well, what's good about my situation? What's working and what's not working? And how could I change it and make it better for myself, right? Now, a lot of goals will improve your reality, will improve your situation in life, but sometimes we need to improve our situation in order to give ourselves the best chance to achieve a certain goal. So, for example, if you're in a job you really don't like, that's limited, or you're being micromanaged, or you're not being recognized for your potential, it can be very hard to achieve the goals you want to achieve for yourself professionally. So what do? You find another job that will reward you for who you are, that's going to give you those opportunities. And then you go to that job and then you never look back. It's like, wow, I should have done this years ago. It's like, I had all this unexpressed potential in me. And the reason it wasn't happening was because I was in a job where I was being held back because there was a hierarchy, or I was having to compete with all these other people. But now I'm in a job where my boss is like, what do you want to do this week? What would you like to achieve, right? Mm-hmm. So you've gone and changed your situation and you've improved it to support you to achieve those goals that you want to achieve, right? So that's what I mean by reality. So hopefully for people listening, that's changed their notions of what's realistic for them. It's not about what the most successful, fittest, strongest, wealthiest person in the world is doing. It's not about comparing ourselves to them and saying, well, they've got everything. They can achieve whatever they want. What can I achieve? It's not about that. It's about looking at your life. How does that support you to achieve what you want to achieve? That's the realistic aspect of it. And that's a really important part of the smartest method, because not only am I just teaching people how to set a goal with the smartest method, I'm teaching them how to just look at themselves and their life differently, and create this new sort of foundation for themselves to set not just one goal, but multiple goals moving forward. And it just changes your whole belief system around goals and what's possible for yourself. So it's about working on yourself so you can achieve this goal, but then achieve bigger, bolder goals in the future as well. And the second part of the R is relatable. So I said realistic and relatable. So what I mean by relatable is, I was talking earlier about having inspiration and having drive to work on your goals. What's relatable for us tends to come from, our core. So our values, our priorities, our morals, the things that are really important to us. Now, I put this at this point in the method because if I said to you at the very beginning, tell me what your values are, I want you to set a goal from there. People may not be really sure yet. By going through all the mechanics of the smartest method first, that help you start to construct the goal, then you're teaching yourself those important steps you need to take first, which is visualization, measurable steps, looking at my current situation. As you go through that process, it helps you to uncover what your values are, what's important to you. So at this point in the method, a lot of people are like, oh, I know what's important to me now, but this goal I've just been setting isn't actually the right goal for me. That's okay. You can actually now turn your goal around. You can refine it. You can make it more relevant to you. So it's about being honest with yourself and saying, what's really important to me, and setting your goals from that place. It's not about comparing yourself to what Joe's doing down the street or what Mary's doing at work. It's like, what's important to me? What do I want to create for myself? What change do I want to see for myself and my family and my friends and my community? And it's not about doing what you think you should be doing or what other people say this is what, you should be doing at age 30 or 40 or 50. None of that matters, right? It's about what's relatable and important to you and setting your goals from that place. And when you do that, you're more congruent, you're more authentic, and you enjoy the process more because it's about you and it's complementing you and your goals. And then the T in my method is time framed and task orientated. In the original smart way of setting goals, it does mention setting goals that are time bound or time framed or timely. So time management is a really important part of goal setting. It's not just about having a due date for your goal. That's important. But what most people find who stick with goals and work on them over time, they usually take longer than we think they're going to take. Sometimes we surprise ourselves and the goal can happen sooner, right? So don't get too hung up on the due date and don't beat yourself up if you don't achieve your goal by the end of the year or by the middle of the year. Sometimes life happens and goals get put on hold. I've been working on a book now for nearly 5 years because in that time we had COVID, and in Melbourne we had 2 very long lockdown periods where I lost motivation, I got deflated, I had to attend to other issues. I experienced people passing away, people getting sick, job change, house change, all of this sort of in the past 4 or 5 years. So my book had to take a back seat a few times, but I've kept coming back to it. So sometimes the due date will change, and that's okay. Yes. What's more important with setting a goal that's time framed is allocating the time to work on the goal. Okay, so this is the missing ingredient here, is that people wait for inspiration to come along, and then it never comes along, and then they wonder, like, why is my goal not happening? Or we get caught up in all the trivial day-to-day stuff of life. We all still have to wash the dishes, do the washing, buy the groceries, take the dog for a walk, right? That's all still got to happen, right? So we look at our week and we use a tool called a default diary. Default diary is looking at how you spend your average week. What days of the week do you work? What hours of the day are you at work? Spending time with family, picking up kids from school, all of that. So you allocate the things that are set in time, that are concrete. And then you look at your week and you realize where's the spare time here where I could be doing more? What am I doing with that time? Am I just coming home and sitting on the couch and watching TV for 6 hours and then regretting that, being like, oh, I should have done something more. I should have started reading that book. I should have written my goals. I should have gone to the gym. Before we know it, the time just escapes us, right? So when we have a goal that's time framed, we're being proactive and we're allocating time to work on that goal, making that time just as important as going to work and cleaning the house. It could be 15 minutes a day. It could be an hour a week. It could be 6 hours a week. It's about allocating that time and having the discipline to value that time and use that time effectively to work on the goal. The other part of it is also knowing what times of the day are best for you. What time of the day are you most productive? Some people, they're early worm birds. They get up at 6 a.m. They smash out a gym session or goal setting, and then they go off to work. But then at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're falling asleep at their desk, right? For other people, they're afternoon. For people like myself, I'm a night owl. I'm up till 11, 12 o'clock writing away. So it's identifying what is the best time of day for you, where the least interruptions, the most focus, and where you feel like that's where your brain clicks in. So for me, it's definitely nights. And I think that's because the first 5 years after high school, I worked in hospitality in a bar. I was up late at night, so I haven't been able to rewire my brain and my body even 20 years later, right? So that's what works for me. So that's setting a goal that's time framed. Allocate the time to work on it. Know what time of the day is going to be most productive for you. So don't get too hung up on the due date, because that will change. The other part of the T is task orientated. This connects back to measurable. So the measurable part of the method is identifying what are the main steps you need to take to achieve your goal. Task orientated is then breaking those steps down even more into tasks, right? So we want the method to help you make your goal as simple as possible to achieve, right? We want it to just be integrated into your life, so it feels effortless, and then you get into flow, right? Even 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference to a goal. It might not sound like a lot, but you can do a lot in 15 minutes. Setting a goal that's task orientated is taking those steps and breaking them down into tasks. And now tasks are what form our habits, and habits are what forms our success. So part of the smartest method is developing these success-forming habits that are not only going to help you just achieve this goal, but all your future goals. So for an
Yeah.
example I can give you is, if you want to be a writer, the three main things you need to do is read, write, and probably edit, right? So you want to be
Mm-hmm.
reading a lot to get ideas and inspiration. You need to be writing, you need to be editing your own work as you go, or after you've written a draft, right? So if those are your three main things, what are some tasks you can do there? So let's say you need to read. So we're going to commit to reading 4 days a week for an hour. So go back and put that in your default diary. 4 1-hour reading sessions a week. Your task there is to read so many words or so many chapters in an hour. Now, what you're doing is you're just focusing on that task. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not worrying about step 7, 8, 9, or 10. You're not worried about the outcome of the goal. You're only just focused on that task. When you do that, you're focused, you're present, you're completely committed to just that one thing you're doing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
When we're completely present, focused on just one task, we give it our all, and we find we get a lot done, right? You keep repeating those tasks, and then it becomes a habit. So then you don't have to remind yourself to read or to write or to edit or do whatever the task is. You're just drawn to it, and you just get it done. And then you find that you've developed these new habits. That's what I mean by task orientated. It's not just about achieving the steps and having that checklist that you tick off, but it's those little actions that you take every day that are going to change your behavior and help you achieve this goal plus all your goals in the future as well. So that's the smart part. So what you've done at this point is you've really just planned out what your goal looks like, how you're going to apply it. You've organized yourself, and you're feeling pretty clear and certain this is what I'm going to do. So the next three letters, EST, are really the icing on the cake here. So the E stands for energized and excited. A goal can be a goal plan and look really great and just sit on a desk. But unless there's energy there, unless there's momentum, nothing's going to happen, right? So you can set up a really great fireplace and have all the logs strategically placed and be like, that's going to be a great fire. But unless you spark it and light the fire, it's pretty pointless, right? It's just sitting there doing nothing. It's the same with restoring a beautiful car. It's like, what's the point of having this beautiful car if you're just going to keep it in your garage, right? You want to take it out for a drive on a sunny day and show it off to people, right? So we energize the goal by constantly giving fuel to that goal, reading a goal statement out to ourselves, writing down what your goal is and sticking it on your wall or your bathroom mirror. Something I did to help me energize my goal was I wrote down my outcome and I keyed that into my phone, and I used the calendar app on my phone. So 3 times a day, this alarm or this calendar reminder would come up on my screen, and it was my goal statement. So my phone would beep, I'd look at it and be like, oh yeah, there's my goal. I'll read my goal. And I was doing that 3 times a day, and it just kept energizing my goal and reminding me, hey, this is my goal. This is what I'm working for, right? You can also just read your goal statement out and do that with lots of enthusiasm. So instead of just saying, my goal is to make $50,000 by the end of the year and invest that money. If it's really dry and flat like that, it's not going to come to life, right? It has to be really energized. So you change that and say, so my goal is to earn $50,000 by the end of the year. I'm going to invest that, and I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go on a holiday. I'm going to buy this. My wife's a nice jewelry, whatever it is. And you energize it, right? Absolutely. Yeah. So you get really pumped up when you talk about it, and you're keen to share that with people, so it doesn't just fall flat, And then getting excited by the goal, so different from energy. Energy is what gets you going and working on the goal, but every goal should have a sense of excitement about it. It's like remembering, like, what is the outcome I'm trying to achieve here, and how's that going to make me feel when I achieve that? And it should make you feel excited. It should make you feel like ecstatic and like, I can't wait to achieve this. I can't wait to buy that house. I can't wait to publish that book and hold it in my hands. That's exciting. And then also think about, how is this goal going to change your life? A goal shouldn't just be a one-off thing, right? Because most outcomes are quite fleeting. We find like we'll get the outcome, and then 10 minutes later we're like, okay, all right, what's next? What's next on my list? That's why it's important to be more focused on the process, right? Because the process can take time. The outcome can just come and go in like a minute, and then we forget about it, right? So how is this goal going to change my life? How could this goal be the stepping stone to something even bigger? And that gives it a whole different sort of sense of importance. It's not just, I'm slogging through this goal, I just want to get this done and move past this and just so I can have a break and relax, you know. No, we want it to be something that's going to propel you forward. And then you're giving lots of life to the goal. You're really like amping it up. So that's energized and excited. Then the final S is stated and shared. This was another thing I found was missing from a lot of goal setting methods is making a statement, a really clear intention about what it is I'm going to achieve, but also how am I going to do this? How am I going to go about this, right? Because we walk our talk, you know, we only practice what we preach. And we have to be really smart and authentic and have integrity and follow through on what we say we're going to do. It's more important, though, to mean what we say before we do what we say, instead of just bullshitting ourselves and other people and saying, yep, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have all of this, and then never do it. So it's important to be honest with yourself about what is it that you want, and then be really intentional about your language and say, this is what I'm going to achieve, this is how I'm going to do it, this is when I'm going to do it by. The rest of the method that you've done up until this point will help you create what I call your goal statement. And a goal statement is like your mission statement. It's like, this is what I'm going to achieve. This is what it looks like. Here's all the steps. Here's how my current situation is going to help me. Here's how I'm going to share this with people. Here's how I'm going to energize it, right? So all of that goes into your goal statement. So you're almost like writing a contract with yourself. And I say, write that, sign it, print it, stick it on your wall as like your commitment to yourself. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. Even if it doesn't work or if I don't even fully understand it yet, because I've decided this is my goal and I'm going to stick it out. So that's having a goal that's stated. It's like, you mean business. It's like, I'm not bullshitting you here. I'm not mucking around. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to stop until I've done it. And then once you've done it, people are like, wow, you know, you've done it. You're a person of your word. You've followed through. And even through all the highs and lows, you've stuck it out, right? And that's the power of a really clear statement. And that's why big companies have mission statements and have visions. It's like, no matter what happens, we'll weather the storm, we'll get through this. This is our commitment to our customers. This is our commitment to our business. This is what we're going to do. And you should treat your goals in the same way. Otherwise, it'll just fall by the wayside. Then the other S is having a goal that is shared. Again, a really important part that's missing from a lot of goal setting methods is the power of accountability. And accountability is what coaching is all about. It's about sharing your statement with someone, like I call an accountability partner, whether that's a coach, your partner, your best friend, your colleague at work, your neighbor down the street, whoever you have a connection with. And it should be someone who wants to see you succeed, you know, because there's a lot of naysayers out there. There's a lot of people who are like, don't do that, don't try this, that's not going to work, just play it safe. Because either they don't think they can do it, or they don't want to grow and see you evolve. They might feel like you're going to leave them behind, right? So don't let those people hold you back. You know, don't share all the intimate details of your goal with someone who's just going to say, why bother? You know, because there's plenty of people out there like that. And that's their journey, right? It's not your job to change them. It's not your job to convince them of your goal or get their approval. Forget all that, right? Because you'll be waiting forever in that case if you're trying to get someone to approve your goal. So just be like very careful who you choose to share your goal with. You might want to put a post out on Facebook and say, my goal is by the end of the year to do this. Yeah, that's great. That's fine. But when it comes to sharing your plan and your progress, you want to have someone who's going to be invested in you and wants to see you succeed, you know, and this could be a mentor. This could be a coach, an advisor, a consultant, a friend who's just always got your back. Just choose the right person. And tell them what your plan is, and then ask them to maybe check in on you once in a while if they can offer that kind of support. Maybe get them to give you a call every now and then and give you a kick in the butt. Or make a deal with them and say, if I don't achieve this goal, I have to do something for you. Like I made a bet with a friend years ago. I was writing a script because I'm a writer, so I was trying to write a script. And I said to her, if I don't write this script, I will put on a dress and I will walk through a shopping center with a dress on. And she went and picked out the dress, and it was like this old frock she found at an op shop. Wow. She's like, I've picked out the dress for you. Remember, you need to send me your script by this date. Otherwise, you're wearing this. You're going to walk through the busiest shopping center in Melbourne. And she took it really seriously. Like, she told all her friends, she said, come to the shopping centre, Brian's going to wear this dress. That was enough for me to be like, oh, crap. You know, she means she's serious here, right? So I'm happy to say that I did finish the script and I didn't have to wear the dress. I think she still has the dress in her cupboard. She's waiting for me to fail so I can wear that dress. But, you know, have some fun with it. You know, that's the goal should be fun, right? So that's an example, is share it with someone who wants to hold you accountable, who wants to see you succeed. And the other part of sharing your goal is, once you've achieved your goal, once you've got the outcome and you've got the results, is it just for you, or can that be for other people too? You know, like, who can you share your success with? Who's going to benefit from your success? Like, if you learn something from your goal, don't just keep that to yourself. Share it with people. Yeah. You might find people will approach you anyway and say, hey, Brian, you've written a book. How did you do that? You know, I get people ask me that all the time. Constantly trying to work on my health and fitness, because that's had some stops and starts. So I have a personal trainer who I really look up to. I'm always wondering, you know, asking him, how do you do this? Like, how do you get across the line, right? And he's achieved fitness for himself and has created this really great program and helps, you know, parents and people in their 30s and 40s get fit again and achieve huge results, right? So that's an example of him sharing his success with other people, right? Because he's an example of what's possible, right? So how can you share your success? How could this not just improve your life, but the life of other people as well? You know? So after you've gone through all of that, we're now at T, the final letter of the smartest method. And this is really the most crucial part, is take the first step, take action, right? So you put all this effort into this plan. Depending on how quickly you work on the method, you might flesh your goal out in a day. It might take you 3 or 4 days. It might take a week. Whatever it takes for you is fine. Just follow those steps and follow them in order, because they're designed to get you to this place of certainty and inspiration, and you're ready. You know, you've prepared yourself. Your goal has life, and it's like, let's get cracking. Why do all that work if you're not going to do anything with it, right? So the T is take the first step. Go back to measurable, where you identified your steps, or even task-orientated, where you broke those steps down, and pick one of those actions. You know, what's something I could do right now at the end of this goal, depending what time of day it is. If it's 11 o'clock at night, you know, you can't rush out there and start talking to people and making phone calls. But you might then email your friend and say, hey, could you be my accountability partner? Or if it's early in the day and you've identified one of your steps is to make a phone call, call that person up, you know, call up the gym and book an appointment with your personal trainer. Call up your friend who's written a book or started a business and say, hey, can I take you out to lunch and ask you some questions? I just want to interview you, right? So cement your goal in place by taking the first step. But you've got to follow through on that step. You know, you actually have to take the action, right? And this is where the hard work will come into play. But when you've got a plan like you've just developed with the smartest method, you're going to be more enthusiastic, you're going to be more eager, you're going to feel more confident that you can actually achieve this goal because you put all this effort into it. So take the first step, then the next step, then the next step, and then, you know, you're on your way. So that's what the smartest method is all about. Create a great plan, energize it, share it with someone, take action, and just repeat that process, and eventually you'll achieve your goal.
Wow, that is fantastic. Brian, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Honestly, to have 2 actual statements for every letter. Now, if that isn't a real concrete plan there, I don't know what is. It's fantastic. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. And I have got your book. Anybody listening, do go ahead, get Brian's book. All the links are in the show notes. Do buy a copy and you'll have it there with you. Absolutely good read. Do get the book. You have given us many tools, daily steps and tips on setting goals. What is the most important takeaway?
It's the hardest question to answer, and that is why. Why do you want to achieve this goal? Why is this important to you? Why this goal? Why now? You know, why do you want to do this above everything else? Explore your reasons why. You know, I've just given you the how, the who, the what, the where, the when. Okay, but none of that really matters unless you've got the why. Okay, so the method can help you figure out the why. If you're not sure why you want to achieve a certain goal, but you just feel like, yeah, I just want to do it because I feel like this is right for me. That's enough to get you started, right? Then dig a little bit deeper and then find your really, really intrinsic reason, why am I doing this? And ideally that should be a part of something big and bigger than you even. Like what is
Yes.
your vision for the world? What is your vision for your
Yeah.
family? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to talk about you after you've passed on? What's going to be, your defining moments in life? Like all that stuff that we quite often don't think about because the answer is a bit hard to find. But if you keep asking why, and really explore that and have fun with that, then you'll tap into something really deep and really personal that's in your core. And that's your true being. That's your purpose. That's your potential. Once you operate from that space, like why you do the things you do, you don't even question it, then nothing can stop you. You'll have all the people in the world try to criticize you, hold you back, tell you not to do it. You can have terrible things happen to you. You can have things in the world slow you down. But if your why is big enough and strong enough, none of that will get in your way. And you'll keep pushing forward, and you'll just reinvent yourself, and you'll find new ways to get there. So that's probably the biggest takeaway is why. And if you don't have the answer straight away, that's okay. Just keep asking the question. Just keep putting it out there. Now, why am I doing this? And this can involve having to really be honest with yourself, be really reflective and dig deep. And, for some people that can be hard. That can be quite confrontational, revisiting those things, those parts of yourself. A good place to start is think back to when you were a kid, and when you're a kid, you know who you are, you mean what you say, you do what you want to do, you act the way you feel, right? And as we become adults, that gets a little bit lost along the way in all the politics and rules of being an adult in today's world. But go back to being a kid and what did you want to do and how did you want to express yourself? And start from that place, start from that place of, that innocence, that playfulness, that imagination back when the world seemed really big and anything was possible, and you'll find your answer somewhere in that space. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Where can the listeners find you online, get your book? What's your website?
Yeah, so good place to start is my website, which is just brianmcaleer.com. So Brian with an I, McAleer, so brianmcaleer.com. You'll find some information there on my coaching, my writing. You can find different links there to my books, videos. You can do my New Year's resolution course. You'll find that all there. My book, Setting Goals Using the Smartest Method, is not available in bookstores, but it's available online pretty much from every online bookseller, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's made to print, made to order in most cases. So you can go on there, order a copy, it gets sent straight to your door. So that's where you can find it. And you'll find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Just search Brian McAleer Coaching Services on those two platforms, and you'll find me. And happy to connect and have a chat, see if I can help you out in any way.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing your deep, insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today, Brian McAleer.
Thanks, Anita. It's been great talking to you and your listeners. And thanks for this opportunity.
You're most welcome. So I always ask these two questions, whether it's a masterclass or whether it's an interview, because we are Create the Courage to be Fearless podcast here. What is one of the most courageous things you have done?
Probably the most courageous thing I've done so far is just choosing to be myself and follow my own path in life. Even amidst all the rules and opposition and standards and expectations of people and cultures. And at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to live with myself, and I want to be happy with who I am and where I'm going in life. I know what I'm doing and where I'm going, and even if people don't understand that or approve it or accept it, that's not my problem. And it took me quite a few years to work up the courage to do that because I looked for validation in the people around me. Like, this is what I'm going to do. What do you think? And most of them were just like, yeah, okay. Or like, why are you doing that? What's this? What's this thing Brian's doing now? once I let go of that and I just followed my own path, like everything changed, and the right people came into my life, the right opportunities came into my life. I'm just walking my own path, and it's still unfolding and I'm still figuring out what it is, but it's never dull. It's always interesting, and there's always some new adventure around the corner, and I love it. So just being encouraged to be yourself and follow your own rules. That's my advice.
That's fantastic. And my final question to you is, what's your definition of courage?
Yeah, I think the definition of courage is being able to act on your intention. I think it's having a really clear intention about who you are, what you want to do, how you want to express yourself, what kind of difference you want to make in the world, how you want to be remembered. Not perceived, because everyone's going to perceive you differently, but, how will you be remembered? And acting on that. That's my definition of courage. Never worrying about sort of standards or expectations that other people might have of you, because they're not real. They've got nothing to do with you as well. It's just about, the world needs you to be the real you. There are too many of us that are holding ourselves back and playing it safe because we're scared. And it's okay to be scared. We all have fears. I have heaps of fears, but I've found the difference is acting on those fears and facing them, not letting them hold me back. And then you push through and you realize the thing you were afraid of wasn't that bad after all. A lot of it is just perceived fears and that. So it's about acting on that intention and pushing through and being yourself. And you'll find the right people, you'll find the right path, and the right opportunities will come your way. And then things just start to fall into place. You've still obviously got to put in some hard work, and you probably will work harder than anyone else, because you're creating your own path, you're creating something new. But it's always more rewarding than doing something that deep down is not right for you.